Well, then, the Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell was listening to that interview, and he joins me now from South London. Very good morning to you, Mr McDonnell. Well, on these EU exit negotiations, what do you make of that? Give me your thoughts, first of all, about the potential treatment of EU nationals.
Just a correction, my constituency is in West London. On these nationals, I have a lot of time for David Davis. I've worked with him over the years on a whole range of campaigns, and he's a very sincere person. But I'm really, really shocked that, as someone who was campaigning for Brexit, that these questions weren't addressed in advance, either by him campaigning for Brexit or by the government preparing for either option of the decision. And I tell you, people are very, very worried. They're very insecure. Both UK citizens in the EU, which again, many of us in our constituencies have a number of former constituents who are living in the European Union now who feel very insecure, but also EU citizens living here. They need cast iron guarantees that both groups are protected. What David Davis is saying is quite clearly these preparations have not been made, and it just makes people even more insecure. I'm extremely worried. But what I'll do, let me make the position clear. From the Labour Party, we've offered the government to work on a bipartisan basis on this issue to try and get the best deal for the UK, but the best deal in terms of UK citizens both in the EU, but also EU citizens living here. So I'm hoping we can quickly come to some agreement on this, because we can't leave it. David is suggesting leaving it another 6 months before they even get to a position of starting the discussions. That's not acceptable.
Well, sorry, just to be explicit here, Mr McDonnell, are you saying Labour will be saying to EU nationals, anyone who arrives until the point at which Britain leaves the European Union is free to stay?
What we've said is that existing EU citizens here now should be given the basic rights of residence. They should be given their rights guaranteed. The same with UK citizens in the EU. That's one of our red lines. This should have been thought about by the government, but also by David Davis and other campaigners around Brexit in advance of their argument for leaving the European Union. I'm just saying that at the moment, the government seems to be in disarray on this matter. OK,
right. Well, let's talk about disarray. You used the word yourself. I mean, would you term that about the leadership issue within your own party? We've now got 2 declared challengers to Mr Corbyn, and you feel that they should just give up now, don't you?
Well, I don't want a leadership election, but if we're going to have one, let's move in an orderly way into that election. Have it as a very democratic and open exercise with a range of candidates. Have the debate about the policies, do it in an amicable and comradely way, and then when the members of our party make their decision about who's best to be leader, who they want to be leader, then we unite around that leader and we campaign in the run to the next general election whenever it comes. But also the issue for me is, just as you've explored with David Davis, our country is facing some really difficult issues now, and we need an effective opposition. So it's important that we come together now in terms of the Labour Party to provide that effective opposition, working, not opposing things for opposition's sake, but also in some instances working in a bipartisan way with the government to get the best deal for our country.
And what is your feeling if Britain, again discussed with David Davis, if Britain doesn't get access to the single market? As Shadow Chancellor, do you believe that the economic omens then would be dire?
Well, we've set out, we're the only party to do it, we've set out some red lines for the negotiations. One of them is open access to that market because, yes, it's important that we trade with the rest of the world and we develop trade deals with the other countries around the world, around the globe. That is important. But, you know, Europe is one of our biggest markets, so it's important for us that we get open access to that. That's the first thing. The second thing we've said is that we need the guarantee of EU employment rights for workers here and workers within Europe itself. There's issues around also our financial sector, which is under threat now. We need to ensure the passporting agreements with the European Union are maintained. We need to ensure our investment in the European Investment Bank is protected and maintained, and that we continue to get investment in our country. So those red lines we've set out already. And what I'm saying to the government, we want to discuss this with you, but we want to get in discussions with our European partners as quickly as possible. Jeremy Corbyn's already met with the leaders of the Socialist and Social Democratic parties across Europe. We've got a pretty good response from them in terms of cooperation of how we can go forward in these discussions about while creating a new relationship with Europe where we can overcome some of the disbenefits of our European Union membership, but really gain and maintain most of the benefits that we had.
OK, let's return to the state of the debate within your party at the moment. Jeremy Corbyn said this, I know you saw him say it last weekend, just debate should be respectful, debate should be polite. I urge people not to use abuse of any sorts. And then we saw you pop up at a meeting, didn't we? Just to remind our viewers.
I know.
They've been plotting and conniving. The only good thing about it, as plotters, they're useless.
Not really listening to what your own leader's saying there, are you?
No, it wasn't good. I'm extremely contrite about that. I promised Jeremy I wouldn't appear on any stand-up comedy events or make any more jokes, and I'd behave myself, and I let him down, I'm afraid. So I'm extremely contrite about that. Jeremy's exactly right, and I'm glad. I heard Angela Eagle said exactly the same thing this morning. We've got to maintain this debate in a comradely way. So, yeah, I let myself down, and it won't happen again. What we need to do, though, is have an honest debate. And also, I want a range of candidates on the ballot paper. And last year, I nominated Angela to be on the ballot paper for deputy because I wanted a range of candidates, but I particularly wanted a woman on the ballot paper as well. And there's reports in the papers today that there's attempts to bully Angela off the ballot paper. And I think that's unacceptable. We've got to have a range of candidates. And to be honest, this is 2016. If we didn't have a woman on the ballot paper, this isn't 1916. We need to have a spread of candidates, a proper debate, and make sure we're reflecting our society overall as well.
But Chancellor, you tried to laugh off that meeting. You make out that it was just poorly expressed. You didn't mean it. You're sorry, but people are forming the view now that you say one thing in public, like you're saying to me now, when you feel you're in private or amongst your own, you say another, and it's the leadership sets the tone of this debate, and you're using some pretty strong language.
Well, that wasn't a private meeting. There were cameras all around me. I just made a mistake. The one thing, whether people like me or not, the one thing about me is what you see is what you get. And if I do drop, if I make a mistake, I admit it and I apologise and I move on. And, we're human beings. I know we're politicians, but we're also human beings as well. And that was done it was a stand-up for Labour comedy event and all the rest of it. Made a mistake, apologised and move on. The most important thing now is that the debate that we now have from here on in is that comradely, friendly debate. And it was last year. All the candidates got on pretty well all throughout the campaign. And I'm hoping that's what will happen this time. And I don't want anybody forced off the ballot paper. The most important thing is if we are going to have a leadership election, let's have a representative one and let the members decide. And then when the members decide in a democratic fashion, then we unite behind the leader and we serve the new leader.
But, I mean, it's not happening, is it, Mr McDonnell? We've heard these protestations coming from the leadership for many, many months now. Ian McNicol, your General Secretary, has suspended party meetings because he says, as I quote, in recent months, there's been a marked increase in reports of intimidation and threatening behaviour taking place at party meetings. Safety is threatened. It sounds like it's getting pretty leery in some of those meetings.
Well, whoever's any form of abuse is unacceptable. And again, we have methods to tackle that. If anyone behaves in any way that is unacceptable, we have disciplinary procedures and we just kick them out of the party. It's as simple as that. I don't believe in suspending meetings, though.
Ian McNicol says in recent months, so you've got several months to work on, how many people have been suspended from the party for intimidation and threatening behaviour?
Well, again, that's down to Ian McNicol as the General Secretary. The elected members of the party, like myself, don't have anything to do with that process. And if Ian thinks there's a problem, he should be acting on it. And if anyone is being abusive in any form who are members of this party, action should be taken. But that's down to the General Secretary and the party machinery. It's not down to elected members. All we can do is make sure the message goes out there, exactly as Jeremy has done. He's published a code of conduct saying this is the way people should behave, and we've got to try and make sure people adhere to that. And I think they will. I've heard from all the candidates this morning, they really want to have a comradely and friendly, amicable debate, and I think that will take place, sticking to the policies, not the personalities. OK, Mr McDonnell, thank you very much indeed. The Shadow Chancellor there in West London.